This is the original pin punisher. I've been bowling all my life. Professional bowling is my passion, and now I'm here to share it with you. How to strike on a house shot, or how to bowl more competitively on a house shot. This is going to pertain to mainly you league bowlers out there. So, you're welcome. When it comes to throwing more strikes on a house shot, or any pattern in particular, I feel that it is better to understand exactly what you're getting yourself into. So like for an example, usually what they call a house shot is the house's oil pattern that they just throw out. Now some centers will actually have a sports shot as their house shot, but that is extremely rare. So mostly house shots are a very higher volume pattern, not all of them, but the biggest difference between them is that they are clipped. Just about every house shot has a very high concentration of oil and then a very drastic difference to the spot that has no oil. So in this video I'm going to show you the spots that don't have any oil at all, the spots that have a moderate amount of oil, and the spots that have a lot more oil. So I'm going to show you how to utilize all three of those places to hit the pocket more and strike. To help you better understand how to find the oil or find the dry spot on a house shot, I'm going to throw a series of 3 shots. One will be very close to the second arrow, one will be close to the third arrow, and one will be close to the first arrow. You're going to see how crazy the ball is going to react on the first arrow and how closer it's going to be to hitting the pocket on the second arrow, and probably about around the third arrow is going to be the higher concentration of oil. So and the further you move left on a house shot, the more oil you're going to find. The shot that was really close to the first arrow, you could see how there was very little concentration of oil in that part of the lane, and it caused the ball to break way too much. So you generally, when you're on these house shots, you want to try to find where the cliff is, meaning where the no oil zone and the high concentration zone is. You want to find that ledge of where it is. So the first arrow obviously wasn't there. Now you notice when I moved in closer to the second arrow, I think I hit around about 12 at the arrows instead of 10. But you can see the oil was in a greater concentration, and you can see the ball hook way less on the down lane. And then that's how you know you have definitely found a little bit of the oil. You definitely found where the cliff is. And generally on my house shot, it's around about 9, 10, 11 is where you're going to find it. So I ended up going all the way into about 15, 16, 17 at the arrows for the third shot, and you can see the ball had plenty of oil and it was able to hydroplane down the lane without overhooking really hard past the head pin. So that is a quick way that you can get lined up, find where the oil is and where not the oil is. You can test the first 3 arrows just to see where you might need to start on your house shot, start hitting the pocket. On a house shot, your pocket strike percentage should be pretty high. Now that doesn't mean you're going to strike every shot, but generally the shots that are in the pocket and striking should be a higher percentage than the shots that are in the pocket and not striking. So that's one thing to pay attention to when you're on the house shot. Now, another thing to pay attention to when you're on these house shots is how much room you have. If you feel like you've got to be pretty accurate and you only have a couple of boards, probably could find a better line or a different ball or a different adjustment. When I'm bowling on a house shot, I generally try to look for about 5 to 10 boards of down lane room. Now 10 boards asking for quite a bit, but you should be able to find a good 5-board margin just about on any house shot in order to really start hitting the pocket. Now that doesn't mean a 5-board margin to strike, it's just to hit the pocket. Another thing you want to pay attention to is your ball reaction. So yes, I just got over how much room you want to have, but another big thing that people really miss is when, let's say you miss a little to the left and the ball just has no chance of hooking and it goes right by the head pin, doesn't hook at all. And then you miss just a little bit right, you see the ball hook way too much, and all of a sudden now you're crossing the head pin on the other side. So that is what we call over-under ball reaction. There are many ways to get rid of it. Either you can slow your ball speed down, you can change equipment, maybe you just need to loft it over the front part of the lane in order to blend the ball reaction out. But when you get over-under ball reaction, that comes from being in a part of the lane that is over-exaggerating the oil and over-exaggerating the dry spot on the lane. Oh, hi there, Jacob.
What's up, man?
My local pro shop guy at Bowlers Mart in Melbourne helps me with all my stuff.
Yep.
So, what is a tip for a first-time bowler getting their first ball? What should they look for, and what do you generally want to get?
Well, generally for first-time bowlers, if you're looking to actually improve and not just keep throwing the ball straight up 20 like your entire bowling career, I tend to recommend either like an entry-level reactive ball or something just a step up from that. So like if you're looking at the Storm series, you're looking at Tropical Surges from Roto-Grip, the Hustles, Brunswick line, it's the Rhinos and the Twists. For me, I tend to try to stay away from starting off in a plastic ball. For one, if you're trying to get that to curve, you tend to develop bad habits to make it curve rather than letting the ball kind of do the work for you. And two, it's just easier and more fun to do with the ball that actually gives you the help. So I tend to want to put people in the entry-level stuff to start with.
You want to point out some entry-level balls?
So for Brunswick stuff, you're looking at Rhino series, Twists if you're a little bit more rev dominant. So let's say you're already getting the house ball to curve a good bit, and you're thumbless especially. Twists are a really good ball for that. From the Storm and Roto-Grip line, the Hustle series is a little bit stronger than your Rhinos, but still controllable, predictable, give you plenty of motion down lane. PBR right here is one of my personal favorites, just came out very recently. Gives you enough traction and oil for almost any house shot you're going to bowl on while still being forgiving enough to use it on friction.
Well, thanks for all that great advice. See you next time on Pro Tips with Jacob. So your typical game plan for striking on a house shot is going to be getting lined up as quickly as possibly in practice, and what you want to do is you want to start with your smoothest ball. Now that could either mean a asymmetric core or a symmetrical core ball, which means you want to have a little bit higher differential, a lower RG, so the ball reads the front part of the lane and stays smooth. Now if you drill an asym ball correctly, it will do that as well. What you want to look for is your miss right doesn't overhook and your miss left hooks just enough to be able to hit the pocket still. And you generally want to try to start out around the second arrow. Right of the second arrow is going to either hook quite a bit unless it's a very oily house shot, and then if you start at the second arrow and it hooks too much, migrate in between the second and the third arrow or into the third arrow is usually a very good starting point. If you're leaving a lot of corner pins or just pocket leaves, there isn't really much luck in bowling. A lot of it is physics and just the way your ball is set up to your game or what you're trying to do with that ball. So let's say you're in the pocket every time, but your pocket strike percentage is much, much lower than the shots that are in the pocket and striking. Something to look for is your ball reaction. Are you throwing the right ball? Is the ball too smooth? Is it coming in behind the head pin? Now, when you start out, you want to start out with the smooth ball, but if you start throwing that smooth ball into like game 2, game 3, it may be running out of energy, thus leaving 7 pins, 10 pins, 8 pins, all of the above. So equipment is a big factor. You want to start out with a strong ball, work your way into a little bit of a weaker ball, and then something that's going to handle the cliff when they start to get very wet dry. Now I'm going to throw a series of bowling balls. I'm going to throw an asymmetric core and a weaker cover stock symmetric and a stronger cover stock higher differential ball. So the 3 balls are going to be a GB3 the first shot, a IQ Tour Solid the next shot, and a 505T. It's a little bit old, but it's a great ball for these kinds of conditions. The first shot you saw the GB3 go down the lane. That ball has got a much stronger cover stock on it. It's still a solid cover stock like the IQ Tour Solid, but it's got a much stronger core in it, and you can see it stayed a lot more stable, and it was very smooth, and it went to the pins a lot better. You saw the IQ Tour Solid, the second shot. Yeah, it was a little further left, but that goes to show you how sometimes that weaker ball can push you further left outside of a zone that you may or may not really need to be in, and then you'll start carrying with, or you'll start having carry issues because your angle has come way too violently off the back part of the lane. So the takeaway from those two is that you want to wait to throw the weaker ball until the pattern breaks down a little bit, and you generally want to try to target in between the 3/6 and the 6 pin. So the third ball you saw, that was the 505T. That's an asymmetric core, and you can see how it stayed very smooth like the GB3, but it was a little bit earlier in the front part of the lane, and it blended the cliffy part of the pattern out, and was able to hit the pocket and drive with plenty of energy. Now, the asymmetric ball on a house shot, it's not going to last very long, so you're definitely going to need help getting it down the lane or through the front part of the lane, which I've noticed that they work very well when you start giving a little baby loft over the front part of the lane. So those are my ways to strike, or keys to success, to strike more on a house shot. It's all about the subtleties when it comes to that house shot. Don't get too ahead of yourself. And if you have any more questions or you want to make another house shot video, let me know. And thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you want to see more content.